Welcome back to Reddit Aliens, everyone. I'm your host, John, so thanks for being here. Today, let's talk about a topic that we all have an answer to. What's something that happened to you that when you think back on it, makes your skin crawl? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Waking up in the middle of the night to find a giant-ass spider just chilling on the next pillow inches from my face. I was so tired and gave 0 Fs because my brain was still half asleep. So I punched the pillow and saw it scurry off and disappear behind the radiator. Fell right back asleep. Woke up the next morning, remembered what happened, and proceeded to rip apart my room, finding no trace of my Spidey friend. Didn't sleep very well for the next few nights. 2 things spring to mind. First one, I hate head lice. At one point, I got them off my little brother's friend when she used my hairbrush without my knowledge. My mom patiently combed through every inch of my hair before using a treatment. I was sitting on a chair and I could see one wiggling around on some hair in front of my eyes. I went absolutely hysterical. I was terrified. It took my mom half an hour to calm me down. Second one, warning, it might make some feel sick. I've told this story on another thread. It happened a week after I gave birth to mine and my boyfriend's son. He passed away at only 5 hours old. My dad's friend at the time found out about it. Instead of giving his condolences like I thought he would, he said he'd put a baby in me if I wanted, and that one would survive. Oh, it still makes my skin crawl. It also makes me feel sick, and sometimes makes me angry when I think about it. Yeah. When I tried to kill myself by overdose, I felt so lucid. I drove to work and was like, I'm cool if I die today, and I don't want to go to work. I told work I wasn't coming, drove home, and just started downing pills. I felt completely at peace with my decision until my husband called to ask why I was home. I disabled the alarm. Then I was really scared and going in and out of consciousness. One of my friends from the psych hospital hung himself. When I think of how scary, peaceful I felt, I really hope he felt peace before he died. I had a problem with my furnace, and the guy who came to look at it, the way he looked at me and talked to me, he wasn't salacious or anything, but his eyes, so full of malice. I called the company and said I didn't want him back, that my gut said no. The girl on the phone said, "You aren't the first, ma'am." When I was a kid, my family went to Costa Rica. I was probably 7 or 8. When we came back through customs, my parents had 2 coconut shells they brought with them or something. I don't remember exactly. Customs wasn't pleased and spent like half an hour demanding to know what fruits they brought as well. None. I don't know, dude was on a power trip, going through luggage, whole 9 yards, screaming about mangoes and shit. Doesn't matter, he's not even the creepy one. The other customs agent takes my little sister and me aside and watches us while Sergeant Papaya is going about his business. He's just kinda standing there, asking us about the trip in a bored fashion. I had one of those stuffed animal monkeys with the Velcro on the hands and feet and was wearing it around my neck. He asked about the monkey, and I got excited and told him his name. My dad was a cop, so I kinda thought everyone in uniform was a friend of his at that point. I was all excited. He was like, "Huh, you like it?" And I was like, "Yes, I like Mr. Bananas," or whatever. He then proceeds to grab the monkey and start lightly smacking me in the face with it, asking, "You like it now, huh?" In the same bored, disinterested way he had behaved through this entire interaction. I think he was still looking at the clipboard in his other hand while he was doing it. At the time, I was just kind of like, oh, this guy's kind of a jerk. Thinking back, that guy was really effing weird. I don't know if it necessarily makes my skin crawl, but I think about it often because, honestly, what the F? When I was little, my dad started picking me up from primary school and taking me swimming before dropping me off at my grandma's. I think I was about 5 or 6. I used to have swimming lessons and would get changed in a cubicle on my own, but my dad wouldn't let me. I remember crying a lot because I honestly didn't really know him that well. He only showed up when I was 4, and then, quite suddenly, I was expected to get undressed in front of him. A couple of years ago, I had somebody who I thought was an old friend of mine contact me out of the blue. We hadn't talked in a while, and so I thought he just wanted to catch up. So I started talking to him, and he suggested meeting up. Initially, I agreed. Then he started asking weird questions about sex, which in hindsight seemed weird, but I didn't think too much about it at the time. I politely told him I wasn't interested in those questions, but he kept insisting that we asked each other questions about the topic. I played along briefly, thinking it was just celebrity juice style fun, but when the questions got weird, I stopped. He asked me what my sexual orientation was, and I told him I was heterosexual. This was where it got really strange. He asked me if I'd had a partner. I said no, not properly. He asked how I knew if I hadn't had sex, to which I insisted that I was sure I'm attracted to women. He then suggested that when we meet up, I could go back to his and we could try it. I point blank refused and told him he wasn't my type. He was saying, "How do you know if you don't give it a try?" or words to that effect. And I kept insisting I was interested. Eventually, he set about meeting outside the cinema, going to a cafe for a drink and then going back to his flat. Now, I had seen a storyline in Corey at the time where something similar had happened to one of the characters. He ended up drugged, and the other person had done the moves with him without his consent. I was pretty sure this was going to happen to me if I still agreed to meet up. So I hurriedly typed a reply, telling him I just remembered I had other plans and ceased all communication. The thought of it still makes me shiver. It was really creepy situation, especially it being someone I thought I knew, and I'm relieved that I had seen those episodes of Coronation Street, because those episodes of Corey may very well have saved me from a truly horrific experience. To this day, I'm still 100% convinced he was going to drug my drink in the cafe and take me back to his flat to do that stuff with me without my consent. Yeah, it was good to follow your gut in this instance. Sure, it can be good or interesting to catch up with an old acquaintance, but that seemed like a iffy situation. Me and my school went to this class trip to a place called New Life Ranch. It's some sort of Christian's venture camp. This was most likely my best friend's last year here because his parents were moving, so we were excited to at least make some cool memories before he left. Sadly, the class was divided into groups of guys and groups of girls for each cabin, and me and him didn't end up in the same group. At some point, we had a huge hide-and-seek competition where we had to find some of the NLR workers and our teachers around the ranch. Now, time for some atmosphere setting. This isn't a ranch. If you would imagine what a ranch was, it definitely wasn't this. We were in the middle of a forest in the middle of nowhere in the middle of Oklahoma. Pretty sure this wasn't even discovered territory, as our bus had to drive off-road for 30 minutes just to get there. The whole place is surrounded by thick forest, and there is one absolutely massive telephone pole thingy, I never figured out what it was, fenced off and labeled with a "trespassers will be prosecuted" sign, like anyone but 8 people had ever read it. One cool thing I have to say about it is that it was so far from civilization, there was almost no light pollution, and I'd never seen a prettier night sky. Speaking of the night sky, at nighttime this place turned real creepy real fast. We're literally in log cabins in the middle of nowhere in the woods, and we're all young high school kids. If that's not the best horror setting ever, I don't know what is. Coming back to the original story, me and my friend decided we would have none of this tomfoolery and both ditched our groups to meet with each other and wander off into the forest. With this move, the seekers had become the seekees. Of course, in hindsight, 2 kids wandering around a dark forest at night with no directional sense or understanding of where we really were was definitely a setup for a bad time. Regardless, venture on we must, and venture on we did. We basically got lost in the forest with our only guide being the giant telephone pole, and all we knew is that it was east from the camp. Only problem with that is that my friend is dyslexic, and I honestly still don't have a good grasp of my cardinal directions. We thought we'd have enough time to consult our directional challenges when we got there, until... Now, me and my friend like to tease each other. We'd always play pranks and people and ourselves, and we were some goddamn good actors when it came to it. So when we started walking down this pine path, all of a sudden, tree branches started snapping off trees and landing behind us with noticeable thunk sounds as they fell hard into the tall grass. As this starts happening, I turn to him and say, "Dude, stop making that sound, it's getting annoying." And as he catches up to his expert ploy, he says, "Seriously, do you think something this tame would scare me at this point?" As I had previously tried to scare him multiple times in our opportune horror-esque atmosphere, I, catching on to his clever act, reply with, "I know you're snapping them, dude. You're not that sneaky." As we would later realize, neither of us were in fact effing with each other, but at the time we continued bickering. About 10 minutes into our tiredness with each other's stubborn attitude to giving up our prank, that was until finally achieved a homeostasis of pure fear when we heard a loud thud, unlike any other tree branch, followed by immediate rustling of the tall grass. In that moment, me and my friend both activated our fight or flight responses, and oh god did we fly. For reference, my friend at the time was 5'8", barely a 100-pound guy, so needless to say, he was light on his feet and quite fast. On the other hand, I was a 6 foot, 160-pound, not very athletic guy. But for the miracle of horror-induced super strength, I was bolting with my underutilized legs. We had matched pace for a while still being too terrified to glance behind at the intense rustling and panting we heard behind us. We both decided our original plan to head to the telephone pole and head east back to other humans was a good idea. That being telepathically communicated to each other with our extreme bro relationship, we both start bolting towards the telephone pole without any resting and without any of the rustling and panting behind us giving space. After 8 minutes of me mashing my legs into the ground along with my friend, we reach the telephone pole. Oh F, it's fenced off. Now, keep in mind, I am 160 pounds of pure force, currently running at what feels like 100 miles per hour. I turned to him and I motioned him to get behind me. I effing ram my goddamn body through the unlocked fence, needlessly stabbing myself with faulty wired fence barbs, and we continue down our telephone pole pathway. This telephone pole has 4 entrances with 4 gates to it. That saying, it has 1 entrance and 3 exits. Me being on the right side and my friend being on the left side, we give a subtle nod to each other and head our own directions past our own gates. I still remember incredibly vividly as I turned that corner, the slight glimpse of what looked like a skinny gorilla with incredibly long hind legs bounding at us like a cheetah. And with that image in mind, I start bolting even faster in my own direction. As I head away from the telephone pole thinking I had headed east, I eventually hear a rustling and panting dissipate to silence. I stop and take in my thoughts and my exceedingly heavy breaths. About that, the intense pain in my legs kicks in. I had done more running than I had before in my last 14 years of life. I immediately crumple to the ground and realize if whatever that wasn't chasing after me, it's chasing after my friend now. I start to tear up as I imagine my friend dying to that creature on what was possibly our last moment together. Legs shredded, I begin to head my own way back, limping on my right leg as it felt more pain than the left. Then I heard it again. Intense rustling came my way, and I turned back to see. It was my friend who saw me and stopped running. Terrified, I asked if that thing was still chasing him. His eyes were completely in awe of what even happened, and instead of answering me, he asks, "What just happened?" And I simply reply with, "I don't know." At that moment, it seemed like all our problems faded away, as we headed half high off adrenaline, and we don't tell anybody anything. In the first place, 2 kids looking half dead saying they saw a monster in the forest aren't going to look sane and are not going to have fun high school moments afterwards. So we stayed silent and looked at each other like old war buddies having survived death's door cooperatively together. While I look back at it now and laugh at the ridiculousness of it, I still have no effing clue what that thing was. Never seen anything like it or heard of anything like it, especially in the forest. All I can hope is I never do see or hear of it ever again, because even thinking about it gives me the chills. TLDR. Me and my friend got chased by what I assume was a demon monkey until we faced warlike trauma and waltzed back into high school life unharmed. When I was little, I used to see things a lot like demons in my mother's doorway and in my closet. It might have been due to my seizures as a child because as I eventually outgrew them, the hallucinations stopped. The creatures fueled my childhood nightmares though, and I on occasion still have these nightmares. Whenever I do though, they are always accompanied by partial sleep paralysis. It makes my skin crawl each time thinking about how no matter how much I scream and try to escape it, I can't make a sound, and no one will come to help. Nothing too traumatizing, but still gross nonetheless. My mom really liked those hot ball candles, the bright red spheres that were hot on the outside and got sweeter as you sucked on it. My mom always would just suck the hot off and spit out the sweet part for whatever reason. One day I went up to bed, grabbed my plastic water bottle I had been drinking for when I got thirsty during the night. Cue waking up in the middle of the night thirsty. I take a big swig of my water and something is just super off about it. I couldn't figure out quite what. Told my mom the next morning. Turns out she'd been sucking hot balls and putting the sweet cores into a water bottle, which then dissolved. I had grabbed hers instead of mine going up to bed, which was dissolved with sucked-on hot candies. Yum. I'm a child.
Yes, I'm an adult. Yes, I'm a dad. But if you ask me to read a sentence that says, Mom sucked hot balls, I'm gonna laugh, okay? I did it. You're welcome. That's me.
When I was 11, I went on a 7-day cruise ship with my friend Allie and her mom. Allie's mom left us alone a lot and did her own thing. Allie and I had made a friend pretty early on, and the three of us decided to go watch one of the shows the cruise had in a massive theater. Allie and our new friend wanted to sit in the front, and I wanted to sit at the balcony, so we separated. Pretty soon I got bored by myself and left before the show ended. It was super crowded trying to get out, but once I got to the doors to the hallway, there was barely anyone around. A random man started to approach me and introduced himself as Anthony. I could smell the alcohol on him, but at that time in my life, didn't know what that smell was. He was stumbling, drink in hand, and started talking to me. My stranger danger senses were going off, but I was raised to always be respectful to adults and wasn't sure how to get out of the conversation. He kept getting closer and closer and asked me what my name was, if I was alone, did I have a boyfriend, etc. I didn't understand that he was drunk or why he was acting so weird. I thought he was just confused, so I shouted to him, thinking maybe he was deaf, that I was only 11. He just laughed and asked me if I wanted to come with him back to his room. I felt so panicked and helpless, like I couldn't just say no. I was looking around to see if any of the passing adults were noticing anything. The effed up thing was, a few were shooting worried glances our way but kept walking. The next thing I knew, the man had his arm around me and said his daughter was back at his room and we could watch a movie together. Right when he started to pull me towards the elevator, the show ended and people came flooding into the hallway. I used this opportunity to slip away and never saw him again. I ran back to our room, turned off all the lights, and laid on the floor and cried for like 2 hours. I felt so dirty and ashamed, but didn't know why. Allie came back to the room after a while and asked where I'd been and why I hadn't met them at the pool like I planned. I was too embarrassed and confused about what happened, so I just lied and said I had a stomachache. I still think about Anthony to this day and don't know why I felt such shame about another person's actions towards me. When I was 18 and still in high school, I had to stay with my older sister, 27 at the time, and her family, boyfriend and 2 kids, 6 years and baby, for a bit. One night after almost everyone had gone to bed, I wasn't feeling good. I was depressed and anxious and thought I could talk to my sister's boyfriend about it. Oh boy. It says I'd known him since I was a kid. He and my sister started dating in high school when I was like 6. Up until then, I had thought he was a reasonably good guy. While I was upset and venting to him, he started getting closer to me and touching me, rubbing my shoulders or my thighs. I was weirded out but thought he was just trying to comfort me. Then he tried to kiss me and I was like, whoa, dude, what the F? He goes, I'm sorry, I shouldn't feel hot for you, but I can't help it anymore. Not knowing what to say, I just say, okay, and shuffled away from him feeling very uncomfortable. He followed. I just think you grew up into such a sexy little woman. Is that so bad? Yeah, you've been dating my sister since I was 6. You have 2 kids with her. Yeah, so what? So F off. He then got angry and started to call me a tease and ungrateful because he was letting me stay in his home and all kinds of nasty stuff. He revealed that he'd been going on my computer in my room on my Facebook and social medias when I was out and spying on my conversations, and it really freaked me out. I locked myself in my room for the rest of the night and the next day changed all my passwords, added security, and improved my security. I stayed there another 4 months. Whoa. Never was able to tell my sister about it, but never had to. They broke up around the time I was moving out because he was being a cheating, verbally abusive arsehole.
What an absolute garbage human being. I'm sorry that your family was subjected to that and that your nieces or nephews are going to be attached to this guy forever, but you got out of it, and hard that it may be, I think it's right that you didn't tell your sister. What do you guys think? Would you tell?
One time when I was 5, I was sleeping. My eyes opened and I was pretty sure I woke up. It was still about midnight or something though. I was still pretty young, so I was sleeping next to my mother. I couldn't move though. I could move my eyes just fine, but my entire body just couldn't. So, I just stared at the door, terrified as shit. I had no idea what was going on. Then I saw something, just coming into view from another room. I really don't know what it is. It was dark, but I can almost swear it was a hunched old woman with a long claw-like fingernails. She was moving so slowly, almost crawling. This went on for a couple of seconds. Then I just shouted at the top of my voice, "Mom!" and was surprised to hear her respond from me behind me. After that, I could move as if nothing happened, and the figure was no longer there. I just chalked it off as a nightmare or something. Fast forward 10 years later, I was really into horror stories and the like on YouTube. Then I came across a topic. It was a video by Top Fives, I think. It was about sleep paralysis. Apparently, what I experienced is called sleep paralysis. It's where your brain wakes up, but your body is still asleep. And in that video, he talked about another element in sleep paralysis that happened to some individuals. Sightings of shadow people, dark figures that appear during sleep paralysis. I was freaked out. I didn't know any of this 10 years ago, but to experience that? But surely whatever I saw is just a figment of my imagination or something, right? Then my heart just dropped. According to him, the figure that was reported the most is that of an old hag. I struggled so hard to sleep that night. To think that so many people can see the same exact thing is just terrifying to me.